Good morning, everybody. It's Monday. Oh my goodness, November 30th. And I'm so excited to have Elisabeth Villiger Toufexis on today as my guest. We'll be back in a few minutes with the show and start the show. In the meanwhile, why don't you watch this?
At work, I was constantly feeling anxious.
But I'm feeling much stronger and clearer about it all.
For me, one of the many aha moments was how to breathe.
So I hope you're having a wonderful Monday. I'm so excited to be here again. This is now our third episode of a Women's Health Revolution television. And today we're going to be talking a lot about the soul. I have what I call the Doctor of Soul here as my guest this morning. She's an amazing woman. But first, I just want to talk to you a little bit about where we're going with the show. If you haven't tuned in before, this is your first time. We are all about empowering women with the tools they need in order to go forward empowered in their life. And so what that means is we have different shows on different topics so far. We've talked about the 4 pillars of confidence. We've talked about women and wealth. And we will be doing other shows about how to get into a more relaxed state and how do you raise your emotional intelligence, a lot of different topics that fall under the category of health. So health isn't just about your physical body, it's about your spirit, it's about your emotions, it's about your mental state, it's about your physical state. So it's really looking at us from a more global perspective instead of just what most people think about when they think of health. It's just, like how do I exercise more? And that's part of the picture. But we want to talk here. We're going to talk about how you detox and what are some of the things that maybe eventually we'll be having some shows that focus more on nutrition as well. So today, let's just talk a little bit about the soul. How do you know if you have a damaged soul? How do you know if you have a wounded soul? So a lot of people are walking around and don't realize that they actually have a problem going on, and they know something's off, but they can't figure out exactly what it is. Maybe you feel a little bit like something's missing in your life. Maybe you have the sense of kind of not being worthless, or that what you're doing doesn't really matter, or maybe that you're not being seen. These are all kind of signs that your soul is needing a little bit of CPR or some kind of repair. And, the way that it shows up a lot of times for people will be like feelings of burnout. It could be depression, overwhelm, sadness. Right now we're seeing so many, this is damaged souls right now for a lot of our medical professionals with COVID going on. Medical professionals already, doctors, have they have nearly 400 doctors a year die from suicide. And those numbers have increased dramatically with COVID because doctors are just feeling overwhelmed, like what they're doing isn't making a difference, or that people don't care. And this is just one example of how this can spill over into your life. And so sometimes people get into the healing arts because they're trying to heal their own damaged soul. They don't even realize it. And a lot of us, I'll get into this more when we have Elisabeth on, but I do want to talk just briefly about my own experience, which was I didn't actually know I had an issue going on with my soul until I I started traveling, and we're going to talk about this more with Elisabeth as well, because she's like me, a bit of a gypsy. When we travel, it's a way of collecting parts of ourselves that we may have left behind, and help putting us back together. So, without talking too much more about that, I'm going to bring on Elisabeth here, but she was born and raised in Switzerland. And after a challenging childhood, she decided to travel far away from home. And she started by becoming a tour guide. And for 11 years, she worked all over the world. And she still works as an interpreter. I think she speaks, 6 languages. And she's been to over 100 countries in her travels. She's a fascinating woman to talk to, and very bright, very well educated. And she started off her life this time around in not the best place. And she's going to share with us a little bit about what she's done, how she learned to repair the soul. What are some tips that we can give to you today to maybe help you if you're feeling like something is just a little bit off? So let me bring on Elisabeth. I'm so excited. Hey, Elisabeth, welcome.
Hey, Carla. So nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have you. You and I have always resonated. I think from the minute we first met, we were like sisters from another mother.
It was not at first sight.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the fact that you've traveled as much as you have. So, when you were traveling? I'm just curious, since I was talking about how travel helped me to repair parts of my soul. Did you notice that things happened for you as you started to travel in that way, or did the soul thing come about kind of later on, the awareness?
Well, the soul thing came while I was traveling, and the further I was traveling and the more I was changing places, the more I actually realized that we are all the same. We all have the same soul, and we are all one same people. We all have pain. We all want to be safe. We all want to be happy. When we have children, we worry about our children. And you can talk to a woman in Papua New Guinea, and all she worries about her children passing an exam, or her, it's just, we are all the same people, and we are separated by unfortunate, by greed, by religion, by so many things that would not really be necessary. We could get on better if we wanted to. And another thing that I have learned, of course, because maybe we're going to talk about my past and how I started off. Basically, I became a tour guide because I wanted to leave. I didn't like where I was born, and I didn't like the circumstances where I was. And the one thing that I realized, though, I had very low self-esteem at that time because I was bullied at school. But if you can go as far as you want. You always take yourself with you. So if you don't fix your issues, you can go to the end of the world and you will have the same issues. Changing places doesn't change things. You have to change them yourself.
You have to change, exactly. So let's talk about that a little bit. You didn't have the best, how do I say this, coming into the world this time around. I don't know if you happen to believe in past lives. I do, but I felt like you got dealt a pretty bad hand. But you've made lemonade out of your lemons. Let's talk a little bit about what was the situation with your mom when you were born, and what happened for you, because we know your mom was 16 years old when she had you. Tell the rest of the story for the people who haven't heard it before.
So yeah, my mom was 60 years old, and she was going to give me up for adoption because she obviously didn't know what to do with me. We're talking about a long time ago, and she couldn't have me. So I had a very, very good grandfather, had a very nice grandfather who said, well, no, this girl is coming home. So I grew up with my grandparents, who were old, and my grandfather died when I was 10. So wow. I had a nice childhood at the time, but of course, once you become aware, people point fingers. It was a very small Catholic village in Switzerland. Everybody knew everything about each other, and I was shown. I felt that people were looking at me differently, and I was not included many times, and I was bullied at school. So I didn't like that, but I was very feisty, and I started working when I was 13. I knew that if I wanted to get somewhere, I would have to take matters in my own hands. So I started cleaning bathrooms in a hotel, and I started clearing tables in a ski lodge in the winter, and I started making money because I wanted to learn English, you see, because I knew that my mother tongue is German. English was the key to the world because I knew that I was going to go far away. And that's how I then applied for a job as a tour guide. And my 10 to 20s were not the best years. They were the years when you're a teenager, you're insecure generally. And then, of course, when it's these circumstances, it doesn't make it any easier. But I got by, and I started traveling, and I started loving the world, and I started seeing that there are so many opportunities out there. And I learned more languages, and I started to really love my life. But as I said before, I still had that low self-esteem that I had been sort of given or that I had developed. And a lot of it was self-inflicted, I have to say. So then, that was more or less how it started.
So when you started, you at the time, as you said, the thing that motivated you was you wanted to get away from where you were. But what was the thing? And English was your second language that you other than your birth language, right? So you started with German, right? Then you went to English. And then
we learned French. In Switzerland, we learned French as a second language, and then
French.
English.
Oh, okay, and then English. Okay, and so then what's name some of the other languages that you speak? Because I just think that's great that you do that. I would love. You're sort of my idol.
Well, look, because I was working for a Swiss tour operator, I had to speak the 3 Swiss national languages, which were French, Italian, and German. So that was a given. I had to learn that. And then I obviously had to learn English because the world speaks English. And then at some point, I worked in Spain, but I already learned to speak Spanish when I was younger. There was a lady in my village who was teaching Spanish, and she gave me a discount. So I learned at a very young age. And then when I came to Cyprus to Greece, I started learning Greek. So those are my 6 languages.
Oh, okay. So, wow, that's amazing. Now, so on all of the languages, it sounds like they were all different. So you didn't learn them in school, right? How were you learning them? What was the way that you learned? Was it just by being immersed in the culture, or what was
I always took lessons. I always found somebody to teach me because I always wanted to learn things well. I obviously I studied in Geneva for a while, which is in the French part of Switzerland where French is spoken. And I had gone to England with my money that I had earned. So I had gone to a summer school, and I had done an English course. And of course, English was an easy language to learn. So I just always wanted to make things sound good. I knew it was important. It's funny how we choose or how we get motivated when you know what it's. We always talk about this why. When you know the why, you can achieve anything.
Right. That's true. And that's actually an important, for those, again, going back to what with our current situation or global situation right now, so many people's lives have been thrown a loop because of COVID, right? We have women who maybe are looking at changing their careers that are watching the show today, or maybe they've already taken some steps to start a new career, or they're confused. Some women find, thrown into homeschooling when they weren't planning on schooling their children at home, having to maybe give up their careers, or also we have the economic problems people are dealing with. So for you, you're a pretty free-spirited person. The fact that you did all this, it took a lot of courage to leave your village, I think, no matter what the motivation is. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what do you think was the thing? Because most people, they think maybe get away from home. They don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to get out of this, my country, right? So that was a pretty big leap. What do you think was the compelling thing that got you there into that mindset?
Well, it was this drive of wanting to see the world. I was fascinated by the world. I was fascinated at the time. All we had were a couple of TV programs and magazines. There was no internet when I was young. But I had pen pals when I was young. I used to write to a girl in Argentina and a man in Greece, and I just wanted to know more about people. But another thing that I want to say about the people who are, at the moment in this situation, I mean, this is a very unusual situation, and my heart goes out to all the people who are in financial difficulty, because I know it's not easy. I mean, we're not, sometimes it may sound what I did. I was on my own. I was just a young woman. I didn't have anybody to look after, or I didn't have any obligations. Then, of course, it's easier. But the one thing that I want to tell people who are a bit lost at the moment, who are maybe in financial difficulties, learning stuff, especially in today's day and age, is free. There is so much available on the internet. Just don't waste your time. Don't waste. This is not a good time, as in, nobody wanted this COVID. Nobody wished for this COVID. But I think it's very, very important to decide what we want to be, or who we want to be on the other side. Are we going to just waste all these months that we are kind of waiting for it to be over? Or are we going to really use them and say, okay, this is my motivation. When this is over, I want to be able to speak Spanish. Or when this is over, I want to be a coach. I mean, whatever you want to be, you can learn everything online. Mm-hmm. So now I didn't really answer your question. I changed the subject, but
no, but it's okay. Actually, that's a great point, because it doesn't matter. I mean, ultimately, I feel like people will get what they're supposed to get from the program. So, and that's a good track that you went off on, because I'm a very dedicated learner myself. I believe that I'm constantly filling myself with new ways, trying to learn new things. I've gone, I think I might have mentioned it to you the other day, but, I play the harmonium, and I hadn't played it in years, put it to the side, and now I've come back to it, and I'm utilizing some of this time. And it's just giving me so much peace, to get back into something and being better at it, than where I was before. And that's a good point. I mean, people could be using this time to learn language. You can learn a new occupation. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, like you said. There's so much. And a good point to not waste the time. I feel like COVID has given us an opportunity to reset. And when going back to the theme today of, giving the soul some CPR, most people are so busy doing. I see people who manage to fill their schedule up with nothing on a regular basis under normal circumstances. And now some of them are being forced to, like you said, you can go all over the world, but you can't escape yourself. So people are being forced to reevaluate, go inward, and that's not comfortable for some people. That's why we're seeing a rise in, mental, I hate to say mental illness, but, problems, depression, anxiety, stress. I see that a lot. A lot of what's coming to me right now with my healing clients are people who are suffering from certain levels of anxiety, and they don't know how to channel it in a positive way. And learning is a great way to do that, right? So let's talk a little bit about how do you help people? You have a product called Soul Kit, where you help people with doing first aid for the soul. So let's talk a little bit about that, and how could that benefit somebody?
Well, one thing that I am sort of very strict about when I work with people is that you have to do it yourself. I don't have a magic wand. I am here to facilitate, I am here to support, and I am here to teach or explain things. But people have to take responsibility for their lives and understand that our life is the result of all the decisions that we have ever taken. And lots of people don't like to hear that, you see, because it's easier to blame somebody for whatever happened. But when you do that, you give all the power to somebody else. And when you start taking responsibility for whatever you've done, and we've all made mistakes, there is nothing, I don't like to call them mistakes, I call them a learning process, because whatever is done, you can't change it. Don't beat yourself up over it. Start again. And so what I do is I help people, first of all, to sort of do a life review. It's called the Wheel of Life, which I use this method, coaching method, where I go into all areas of life and see where people are. Because when your wheel of life is not even, when you are making a lot of money and working all the time, but you don't take any time for your family or for your health, it's not going to end well. Because you may end up having a burnout if you work too much, or you may end up having problems in your relationship because you don't give enough time to the family. So what I do first is find, sort of repair the wheel of life and see where changes need to be made. And then the second part is looking at the subconscious mind, because 95% of everything we do is driven by the subconscious mind. And in that subconscious mind, we keep all our beliefs, our memories, our values. And some of our beliefs that we've kept from childhood, they don't serve us anymore. They are limiting us. So usually when I do a life review, I can already very often hear from the first, second, or third phrase that what is limiting a person? Where does this come from? It may be connected to money, a scarcity mentality, or it may be connected to very often to weight. People who were told as a child, you're a good girl if you finish your plate, or, oh my God, you fell over, you poor thing, let's have a cookie. There are so many things that have got to do with beliefs that were given to us. Or also kids who had parents who were always afraid. Fear is a huge factor that holds us back, that creates limiting beliefs in our mind. So that's the second part that I do. And then, of course, once everything is cleared and once people are ready, we set cool goals. We change things around. We change limiting beliefs into powerful affirmations. And then I remain around for a while as an accountability partner. But usually, in a couple of months, depending on what a person wants to do with me. I also do hypnosis when I see that somebody has maybe trauma. No, I'm not a psychologist, I have to say that. But when I see that somebody will need a little bit of more changes in the subconscious mind, I write a nice hypnosis script.
Mm-hmm. Great. So do you do self-hypnosis as well? Can you do that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So,
and
is that something, how often do you do that for yourself?
When I feel that I'm not getting anywhere.
Yeah, I know. I totally get it.
Carla, I may sound perfect to you, but I'm not. We are all human, and we all have those days when we don't want, when I look at my phone for an hour and I think, oh my God, I really should be doing something now, and I still haven't started. And the first chapter in my book, The Soul Kit, actually is, it's okay to feel down, but don't stay there, you see. Right. Because we are human, and how would we feel our ups if we didn't have any downs? It would be a flat line. A flat line is being dead. So, in order to feel our ups, we have to feel down. But what is important is to actually take charge and then change things. Understand, okay, today I am, and that's when the self-hypnosis comes in, or just even talking to yourself, or self-love. Because another thing that I find, which is very important, is how we talk to ourselves. Sometimes we are not very nice to ourselves. Sometimes would you be talking to a friend like you talk to yourself sometimes? Because we are the person that we talk to most all our life. And I think we should like talking to ourselves.
Well, I think too, it's an awareness thing, because it's similarly when I'm working with clients, right? I'm working with those thoughts that are going a little cray-cray in the head, and we have to be good practitioners of not just how to help our clients, but with ourselves. That's very important, right? To take care of ourselves and look and see where we are out of integrity with ourselves. And so I will see, for me, and it sounds like you go through the same thing, and I think a lot of female entrepreneurs go through this, just human beings do. But, you get into this place where you don't necessarily realize that you're kind of not moving, kind of sitting there for a while. And there's like, I agree with you. I think it's okay to let yourself, if that's what you need to do, be there for a while and don't make yourself wrong for it, but also be willing to go, okay, that's enough. You know what I mean? Move on.
Yeah.
You know, some people are so stuck in their story that they just keep recycling the story over and over and over again, which I don't think is really, you know, where I want to see people go. Right. So I think the thing is to recognize that you have a story going on. And that's the other thing. Like, what for me, and I don't know what your process was, so I'm going to ask you in a minute. But what helped me to understand that I was not those thoughts running through my head was my meditation practice. That I've been practicing a regular meditation for almost, I guess we're probably on 40 years now. I've lost track of how every day I never miss a meditation practice. If that means I have to get up at 3 a.m., that's what I do. And that was part of becoming the witness of what's running through there. You know, I think of it as a ticker tape in your brain that you didn't have any control over. So so tell us a little bit about what was the process for you. How did you come to the awareness that, oh, gee, that's not who I am. That thought right there is not real. What do you think brought that up for you? Do you even remember?
Well, I have a very interesting story there, because when I was a tour guide and I was traveling around Florida, I was doing Florida round trips at the time. And I always took my clients to the Fort Myers, to the Edison Mall in Fort Myers. This was I'm talking about 1989. And I picked up this book in a bookstore. I was browsing there, and I picked up this book, which was called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I took this book with me to the hotels where we stayed tonight, and I started reading, and I was absolutely fascinated, because I didn't know 30 years ago, nobody talked about personal development. Nobody talked about, I didn't know that I had a conscious and a subconscious mind. And I couldn't stop reading. I could not stop reading. This was really the day or the night that I moved from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. And funny enough, shortly after, I was in California. I was doing round trips in the West. And I was staying in a hotel somewhere in Long Beach, somewhere near the Los Angeles airport. And I had a couple of days off, and I was bored. And there was a public speaking event announced. And I thought, oh, well, you know, that's one way to spend the day, because I didn't want to go sightseeing. Sightseeing was my job as a tour guide. So, and I attended this public speaking seminar, and it was given by a freak in shorts and a yellow T-shirt, and it was Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow.
And he bought this book, Unlimited Power. I think that was his first book. And I learned how to set goals. And I learned that was a complete change. That was the change in my life. And of course, I didn't become a coach or I just started becoming aware. I started understanding how much power I have over my mind. I started understanding that meditation, as you say, stilling my mind. And you know, meditation is so often misunderstood by people. People think that you have to sit for an hour in an uncomfortable position and you won't be able to get up again or something. In my world, even a nice long breath is a small meditation. You know, like the time that you actually don't think. And of course, once you start practicing and once you start understanding that you can tell your thoughts, you know, I don't need you right now, come back later on when I'm not busy. I think you can train that, and that is so good for the soul. I mean, this is soul food. Meditation is soul food. But I also I also feel that a nice walk in nature is a meditation. You know, when you actually use your senses during your walk, you don't walk around and think of what you're going to cook for dinner or what you're going to present the next day at the seminar. You actually consciously walk. You smell the grass, or you smell the sea, or wherever you are, and you hear the birds, and you maybe touch a tree trunk, or you just involve all your senses. That is meditating, and that is good for your soul. Or you ground, you put your feet in the sand if you are on the beach, or you take your shoes off in a park and you walk on the grass. You know, connecting with connecting with your soul.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that those things are all good. Really important. Taking time in nature, at least for me, is, and it's whatever feeds your soul, whether that's going to the desert or the mountains or the ocean or just going out into a park, is great. And you've probably heard of this, but there's been a movement for some years now called grounding, right? Which is
Yes.
basically taking off your shoes
Yes.
and walking on the grass, right? Because people are so used to being in shoes all the time. But I do want to touch on one thing just for about the meditation for me, because I think it's important for people to understand, because you said people have these misconceptions about what meditation is. And it can be all those things. It can be all the things that you talked about. And it can also be sitting there and watching the thoughts. That's okay too. And just, and then just going, okay, that's interesting, rather than, oh, that's real, right? Just noticing that's interesting. I don't need that, very important that coming to that awareness, and the more that you do those practices, like some of the things that you mentioned, whether that's sitting down and taking a breath, or you do it the way I do. I actually work with a mantra that I repeat, and then I come back to the mantra when I remember. But even if I forget, I'll find out that if I don't make myself wrong for whatever it is that's going on during my meditation, if I just allow it to be, then I can ultimately, at some point, usually it will settle down, and then I can go into a deep state of peace, right? Bliss. And that's who we really are, is that gap, that in between, right? In between all that blah, 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 stuff that's going on. So important. So what are, let's talk about that a little bit. What are some of the other, if you picked your first, let's see, maybe your 3 top things you've already mentioned one, which is going to nature, the breath work, giving your soul CPR. What would be another thing that would be kind of like the thing that comes to mind? If I said, hey, I need to give myself a little first aid, what comes to mind in there?
Well, I think breathing in general, because sometimes you don't have the opportunity to go into nature. Maybe you are in the middle of a presentation, or you are at an exam. And I think to really, really apply a breathing method, and like 4-7-8, breathe into 4, hold it for 7, breathe out for 8, make the out breath longer, or do a straw breathing, like you breathe in and then you feel like you purse your lips, and you breathe out like you would be breathing out through a straw. So you do this. So that goes deep, because what we do when we are anxious is we don't breathe down to our belly, and that makes it worse, and that makes that puts us in a fight and flight mode. We start releasing stress hormones, and of course that, especially when you are in a situation that you're already anxious, it makes everything worse. It stops your brain from working properly. So breathing in general, and even if you only have a minute or 2 minutes, is definitely one out of the soul kit's repair. What do you call it? It's out of the soul kit. Yes, yeah. It's a Band-Aid from the soul kit. The other thing that is also important is to laugh. Even when I was training as a tour guide many years ago, because we were taught about, difficult clients, and we had this very interesting instructor, and she was telling us, like, when you are sitting at your desk or when you are somewhere, and just go behind, pretend that you're taking something out of your drawer, and just do this. You don't have, there is a muscle here that actually sends a signal to your brain that you are happy, and you start releasing neurotransmitters that make you happier. Just something that makes you feel better. And I think also, of course, it depends what you have. I personally, I like cats. I have cats, but or I don't know, a pet, connecting with a pet. Or just talking to a friend, just make a call. There's always somebody available. Hopefully we're not alone. And reach out, ask for help. I believe that asking for help is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. And I have learned in my life that genuine people, successful people, are very happy to share their knowledge. They are very happy to tell you how they got where they wanted to get. And if the first one doesn't give you any answer, go to the next one. I believe in asking for just kindness, exchanging kindness. And of course, another, in my books, another very important soul healer is helping somebody. Because when you help, it gives you a feeling of you make a difference, and whatever you do or whoever you help comes back tenfold. I believe 100% in that.
Mhm. Well, that's a really good point. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of that culture has gotten lost out there. I wish more people were on that track, which, in terms of, helping each other helps you. I think that's very important. I think that's part of the satisfaction for being a healer. Is I love watching somebody get, that had that problem, just have their life start to get better for them, whatever that is, however that looks for them. And, but yeah, just giving selflessly too, is very important, and service to people. So, because again, the idea of, there was this chiropractor, and his saying used to be, healing the planet one spine at a time. He would help people get peaceful by adjusting their spines. And I think that's, we can take that into, what if we just did a random act of kindness, for somebody every day. Just pick one thing, even if that's just calling to say, hey, I love you, or I'm thinking about you, or sending a text, where people feel loved, included, appreciated for what they do. So, no, I love that. Those are all really, really great tips,
Yeah, and
so,
don't you love watching people heal? I mean, you're doing that, and I'm doing that. Maybe we're not doing it in exactly the same way, but you watch the shift. You watch when people actually. I always feel that I want to film my clients before, at the beginning and at the end, and watch the difference. How more upright they are, how much better they breathe. That flat anxiety breath is gone, and they are like joyful. Yeah. And I think that with every person that we heal ourselves.
yeah.
There is a process that we go ourselves through. And what you said before, sorry that it may have been lost a little bit, that culture, but what about, Carla, you are in California and I'm on the other side of the world. How about if we bring it back?
Right.
Let's become pioneers. And the more people you affect, let's just help each other more. I'm not talking about free work. We want to get paid for our work. That's not the issue. We have learned our trade. We give our time. So, that's a different story. But for example, when somebody becomes my client, and then I understand that this person is really in a desperate situation and needs to speak to me on the phone, I will take the call, even if it's at time that may not be suitable for me, but because I feel that this person needs me now. Right. And there's a big difference between giving away for free. That's one thing. We give a lot. But on the other hand, it's people who invest in themselves, and the best investment you can make is in yourself. When you invest in yourself, you appreciate it more.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And I think, again, a lot of people, well, you kind of get the two ends of the spectrum. You get the people who are so self-focused that they're constantly, taking, right? And you get people who are really amazing givers, and they give so much that to the point of they're actually detriment for themselves, right? So the idea is to find balance here, somewhere in between, where you're doing some service, you're, as you said, getting paid for your craft and the things that you offer, but also knowing when you need to stretch that a little bit or reach out and help. It could be something, as simple as, gee, my neighbor can't cook for themselves, maybe, bring over a pot of soup for them or something, so that it's the little things in life that make such a huge difference for people. And you never know. I mean, I've had people, and I'm sure you've probably had this experience too, where, I'll run into them randomly somewhere and they'll, I really admire you. You really inspired me by what you did this. And you're like, for me, it's like, I didn't think it was any big deal or whatever. And I'm always kind of shocked, or because of you, I did that, because of what you said. And I'm like, wow, you were actually listening. That's so cool.
Wonderful. That's so wonderful. Yes, I agree. I mean, I've got that, like, I make this post every morning with my inspirational Facebook post. And sometimes when I'm in the supermarket and I have this person comes up to me who I know, but I didn't even remember that we were friends on Facebook. And this person has never liked anything in her life or his life. And they say to me, I wait for your post every morning. And I think, wow, and this is the thing. This is another thing. We don't have to do things for masses of people. I don't know how many people are going to listen to us here, but if we can change one person's life, or if we can affect one person or two people, that is already a good thing. It's better than none.
I agree. Okay, so I'm going to make a total change of topic here.
Okay.
Because you mentioned something earlier and it made me think. So what was the funniest experience you ever had with one of your tour clients when you were being a tour guide? I bet you have some great stories.
I'm reading my travel stories. I sometimes post travel stories on Facebook. I have a lot of stories, but I think I have lots of funny stories. But I was talking recently about I was on this huge tour. It was called the South Sea World Tour, which was very expensive, very exclusive, but also very, very tiring because we flew around the world. And people were always tired, always asleep during the excursions. Then they were frustrated because they missed everything, jet lagged. And I had this lady who was traveling on her own and she was always late. And that's a problem when you have a 20, 30 people who have to wait for a person every day. They become frustrated. And also, it's a time stealer. You miss out at the end. So I told her a few times, look, you really, really need to be on time. You need to be on time. Otherwise, I'm going to have to leave you behind for one of these. And she didn't listen. She was very arrogant. And so I actually did it. I left her behind. We went on a tour in Honolulu, in Pearl Harbor. And I waited for 10, 15 minutes. But because usually I would go back to the hotel and I would call the room. Everybody would be on the bus. I would go inside. But I left her behind on purpose. So anyway, we ended up in Los Angeles in that Buenaventure Playa hotel, which is like a tall hotel. And there was a little tremor in the night. There was a little earthquake, not a big earthquake, but you've got lots of those, don't you, in a little shake.
Yeah.
And so she went home. I went to my debriefing a few days after the trip. I went to my company and she had written a complaint. And she said, not only did I behave like an army general, bossing her around, telling her to be in time, I also took her a hotel where there was an earthquake. Like
that was your responsibility.
It was my fault.
That's very funny.
I've got lots of those. I've written down a lot of stories because it's a long time, but I actually remember people's faces and names, the people who made an impression on me.
Wow. So were you working for a specific company at the time, or were you freelance? You were working for a specific company?
I was mostly working for a Swiss, for the largest Swiss tour operator, but we had some really big tours because we had offices all over Europe. So we had a very interesting clientele. It was a fantastic time. I am so grateful for those 11 years. I really, really have seen the world in the best way, stayed in nice hotels. And I've been everywhere in the US. I've seen every national park in the US that you can imagine and the world. So
for people who might be thinking about hopefully traveling soon after this COVID business is more under control globally, what would be the top 3 places that you think everybody should see?
Oh my God, that's a question that people ask me. I don't know. I mean, it so depends what you want, what you like. I have to tell you, I worked in Thailand. I love Thailand because of the beauty, the beaches, and I love the people because they're terribly funny. Because most of the time you can't communicate properly, so you have all these funny situations, and where especially when you work, you just spend sometimes you get annoyed, but most of the time you laugh. So Thailand, of course, my home country, Switzerland, is a beautiful country. And I don't know. I mean, I went back, I got stuck actually, or I got caught in Argentina at the beginning of COVID. And I had forgotten how beautiful South America is because I stopped over on the way home in Sao Paulo. And yeah, it's a beautiful world, but you see, the world is only as beautiful as you see it. Because that's another thing that I have learned as a tour guide. I used to go around with people, I will never forget the first time I saw the Grand Canyon. I got out of the bus, and as a tour guide, we were never allowed to say that we have not been there before, because we were not allowed, people shouldn't think that we were there for the first time. Right. And I walked up the bus and I said, oh my God. And when something like that happened, when you went to this awesome, beautiful view, and somebody would come and tell you, my seat on the bus is really dirty, or my, something so, I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand that. How can you allow something so stupid take away the joy of this view? But that's a mindset, you see. That's a soul. A soul thing. It's watching. There is a difference. People have different kind of eyes. We don't all see with the same eyes.
Yeah. Well, we don't even hear the same words the same. Like I've talked about this a lot, where I could say the word God, okay, for example, and what your idea of that is and what my idea of that is going to be something completely different. Now, that's an obvious one. But even if we say, we say a thought and we say, you understand what I'm saying, right? And the person says yes. And a lot of times they don't necessarily understand what you're saying. They have a concept of what they think that means that might fit into where you were going. But we are, a lot of times, more than we realize, that we're not on the same page in a lot of ways. This is what makes life so interesting, right? But it is, like you said, if you're going to get what you focus on, people, it's interesting what people will choose to put their attention on. You're in a beautiful country and they'll whine about whatever the problem is, pick up one thing and keep getting stuck on that instead of moving on. And you'll see those same characteristics in other parts of their life too, right? And so it's what do you, and this is a great question for the viewers, what is it that you're hanging on to, you might be hanging on to today that's stopping you from enjoying this moment? What is that? And are you willing to even consider letting go of that? Because if it's, because a lot of times I see people, they come to me and they say, well, I have all this anxiety and stress over blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, I understand that. Are you taking any steps to mitigate that? Are you doing anything to try to help that? Well, yes, I'm doing this. Okay, great. So what would it take for you to let go of the anxiety and stress around that? What more would you have to do? Because, it's like we all know, if worrying about something doesn't really help us, right? Worrying doesn't fix the problem.
Worrying is a waste of time. Worrying is creating something in your mind that you don't want.
Yeah. And it's, I, as a recovering perfectionist, one of the things I know is, people who are perfectionists, people say that with pride. And it's like, okay, that's great. But the thing is if you're thinking about perfection all the time, then there's a part of your mind always looking for what's imperfect, right? Where's the mistake? Where's the problem? Instead of, again, where's the beauty? Where's the beauty in this moment?
Yeah.
And we do that with so getting back to our topic here, we do that a lot with our own souls, right? Instead of looking at what are the 99 other good things about me right now, instead of focusing on the one thing that's maybe not so good and blowing that completely out of proportion, So how do we shift our focus from the looking at the what's wrong to focusing on what's right? Let's give them a nugget that, today, a couple of nuggets that we've already talked about this a little bit, but some other nuggets when people see themselves going into that spiral of I'm in lack, or I'm missing something, or there's something wrong with me. Yes, they have affirmations, they can go meditate, but on a practical standpoint, when you talked about setting goals, let's talk about some of the things that you used to set goals for yourself that helped you move you forward. After you read your Tony Robbins and you read was it Jim Murphy? Is that the other book?
Dr. Joseph Murphy, yes.
Okay, Joseph Murphy. I was pretty close. So let's talk about that for you.
Maybe people called him Jim as well.
I don't know.
I think one of the most important things in life is how you start your day. How do you start your day? You know, how long does it take you to get out of bed? And what is the first thing that you think about? Are you thinking about, oh my God, what a horrible other day do I have to go through? Or do you actually, you can switch. I mean, you can consciously start your day and you can say, what can I do today to make this the best day of my life? Or what can I do today to make this a good day? And, you know, if you don't want to get up, the best thing is to get out. But, you know, if you don't want to get up, it's like, thank you for my bed. There's this, we are 8% of the people in the world live like us. They have a roof over their head and food in their fridge. And even if it, you know, one thing that I have learned during COVID as well, we can live with a lot less than we think we can. We don't need to buy all these things that we buy. But that's not that's another story now. But how do you start your day? You know, do a little stretching in the morning. Get up a little earlier. The worst thing that you can do to yourself is start this anxiety, and that is self-inflicted. If you wake up the last minute and then you just have to rush around and jump in your clothes and miss the leg of the trousers, and you know that's how anxiety is created. Take a conscious shower. Live in the now. Like I hope.
We've got you frozen here, so I'm not sure what's going on. I think we lost the feed there for a second. I'm going to try to bring Elisabeth back. I'm not sure what happened. It froze. So let's try that again. I'm going to bring you back in. There we go. We lost you there for a minute. So
I was talking about.
Oh. Elisabeth, we've still got a problem. Okay, I'm going to remove you and bring you back in one more time. Let's try to fix this. Well, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm not sure what's going on here. We were just doing fine, but we're going to try to bring her back one more time so she can complete this thought. Okay, let's try that. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Yay.
I was in the middle of a shower, I think, when I was talking.
Yeah, you were talking about a conscious shower. Yeah.
Yeah. So I watch the water go down the drain, and I think all my worries and all the things that I'm worrying about today are going down the drain, and my day is going to be fine. And you know, just talk to yourself. And you were talking about spiraling. I think, you know, there is this gap. There is this. The first part of a downward spiral is usually starts with boredom, and then it goes down and down and down and ends in depression. But the first word on the upper side is contentment, just being content. You know, nothing more. Just say, I am enough. I am fine. Everything is fine, and always know that everything is temporary. This COVID, this situation, as bad as it is, it's temporary. It will end. But what we tend to do is we tend to actually spoil our good times as well, even though we know that they are temporary. We start looking for a problem, you know, and that's when we focus on the good stuff. You know, start your day well, do a little gratitude exercise, have a conscious shower, eat your food consciously, you know, be grateful for what you have on your plate. Gratitude is my daily drug. I'm a gratitude addict. And I you know, I get on people's nerves with my gratitude, but I don't care. And I just did a thing for a charity. I work for this. Some of my friends from the Global Women Club Cyprus, they are into charity, and they collect money for families in need. And I have this ebook which I once wrote a while ago. It's called "Gratitude Changes Everything." And you see, these people collect all their money with bazaars, with teas, with everything that you can't do now because it's you know. So I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I thought, I'm going to sell this book online for €5. And you know what? In 2.5 weeks, I made €1,200 with a simple ebook.
Wow.
And it's so nice to be able to help. You wanted nuggets. So start your day well, be grateful, give, shower consciously, eat your food consciously. Be here now, because no matter how much guilt you have, you cannot change the past. And no matter how much worrying you do about the future, you can't change it right now. You can create it right now by feeling good.
Well, those are great tips for people, and I hope everybody was paying attention, because that is a huge thing. Is how do you go into your day? And a lot of people, unfortunately, first thing they're doing is picking up that phone and looking at the phone and emails and whatever, and the news, right? Or people who follow. My father-in-law, he's passed, but he would watch the news every night, and he would fall asleep during the news in bed. And I'm like, this is just so unhealthy, because you're circulating all of that in your subconscious now the rest of the night. So if you're, for people who are glued to the statistics on COVID and, the spread and the rise and all the things about that, and then you go to sleep with that stuff in your mind, and you're actually growing your anxiety and fear. It's like throwing fertilizer on it, instead of focusing on, and actually telling people, look, I know this is hard, but think about not watching the news. What would happen if you didn't watch it? Now, I'm not saying not at all. Maybe you want to tune in a little bit here and there to know what's going on in the world. But if you're addicted, or you're one of those people who's really, because there's a kind of an addiction that happens with this. It's in a kind of a sick way. And I'm sure if we looked at brain patterns, we'd see something very interesting here with people who are watching. I just saw, this is a real digression, real change, diversion from our path, but I just saw something really interesting. You know how there's a lot of people talking about conspiracy theories right now, conspiracies around COVID. Here in the United States, it's conspiracies around the election, or, and I just saw a very interesting article that they did a study, and they found that people who believe in and that tend towards conspiracies literally have a different structure in their brain. Their brain is wired slightly differently from people who don't. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting. Who would have known? That's a physiological manifestation. It's a manifestation of our physiological state. So, of course, the brain has neuroplasticity. We can always change it. And we change it by putting in good stuff. Just like the body changes with good food, the brain changes.
The mind is a muscle. It needs to be trained. And, practicing gratitude once every 3 weeks is not good enough, because that does not create the muscle. It's daily work.
Right. Daily work. And also daily affirmations are great.
Yeah.
Like I think you mentioned that. I have a little, flip chart that I go through every morning. After I do my meditation, I read my affirmations, and I'm constantly adding new things to that, And then I also, like you do self-hypnosis, I do emotional release work on myself, emotion code sessions where I'm taking that stuff out. So we've got about 2 minutes to wrap up our broadcast. It's been just such a pleasure, it always is, to just chat with you. You're such a wealth of information. And so I want to just give you another minute or so to just talk a little bit more. I'm going to put up your website here for people who are interested in learning more about what Elisabeth offers. You can find information here at thesoulkit.com. Can you talk you got like a minute to just give us a little information on that?
I've got a published book, which is called The Soul Kit. That's how the whole thing started. I also have an online course, which is The Soul Kit in lessons. So you can listen to it, and it comes with a workbook. So you can do all the exercise and become not a better person, but have a more trained mind. I've got my new course, which is called the Soul Guru Lifestyle Program, which is it goes deeper. It's also more expensive. You've got 3 hours with me, one-to-one coaching. And I've got some other little ebooks. Just have a look at the website and get in touch with me. I would love to connect. If anybody wants to connect with me, most of my social media is in my name, Elisabeth Villiger Toufexis. You will find me. I'm all over the place. I'm loud. And I forgot to say one last thing. One of the most important things in life is a good sense of humor. Have a little laugh and laugh about yourself. You know, that is the best thing you can do. And don't take yourself too seriously, because, you know, we're all going to go with empty pockets one day. Let's enjoy this here, whatever it is, as long as it lasts.
Yeah, like you said, you can't take it with you.
No.
So, yeah, and just, you know, the other thing I want to encourage people, and I know there's a lot of hesitation right now because of our world circumstance, but traveling is is a great way to repair the soul as well. You know, for me, my first trip to India, when I came back, you know, even my mom said, there's something different about you. I don't know what happened to you there. And I knew it. It was like I had reclaimed a piece of me. And so very important to look at that as well. So, well, we want to thank you all. We know your time is valuable. You could choose to do anything with it. I'm so honored that you chose to be with us this morning. Do come back and join the revolution. You know, the Women's Health Revolution is CPR for the soul. We will have another show in 2 weeks on Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Watch for the announcements. Elisabeth, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to go to sleep soon. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, yeah, it's 9 a.m. here. So I'm going to, with that, we're going to go out with our reel. So thank you so much. All right, everybody. So please do come back in 2 weeks. We would love to see you. And I hope, you know, please do an act of kindness, a random act of kindness for somebody else. Vibe up, you know, raise your vibration by doing something new and exciting and interesting for yourself. And please use this time wisely that we have. It's a gift. So, all right, signing off.
At work, I was constantly feeling anxious.
But I'm feeling much stronger and clearer about it all.
For me, one of the many aha moments was how to breathe.